Okay, my memory card got full there. So I was talking about the monochrome color palette and things like that. And then at the back here, you can see I'm exploring sort of colors in a different way. So that was that. And then I started kind of getting more interested in creating my own palettes. So I thought at that point, you know, it was time to just create little palettes like this. I think this one was, yeah, this one was the first one. And no, actually before that I had my Daniel Smith, because this is when I actually started trying out a lot of Daniel Smith colors. So I put a Daniel Smith color palette, which still has some of the aspects of a traditional, in the sense of that there are yellows, there are oranges, reds and pinks and greens and blues and purples. Well, no purples actually. So, but it's a little bit in a sense where I am picking out the colors that I love. So lemon yellow, not necessarily do I love it, but I know it's very useful in mixes. I'm not using it at the moment. So my latest palette is this one, for instance. And you can see here, if I show you the swatch list, the closest color we get to a yellow is completely different to any of those yellows. So that's what I've done. Also, obviously, I can create these palettes now, which are very unique, because if I did want to ever use the traditional colors, I have my sets ready and I have a little set for everything that I need. So I can now create, you know, like specialty palettes for myself. But you definitely need to have these options. I'm not saying that you don't need to have them. You definitely do. But over the years, you realize what works best for you. For instance, Indian yellow and nickel acer yellow, those are yellows that I would use if I would use a yellow now. I find them very beautiful on their own, as well as mixing into other colors. So there are a few favorites here in this palette already. The green gold and the rich green gold, they have been favorites, and sub green for years and years. And then, you know, things like moon glow and shadow violet, that's my kind of purples right here, and my grays. And I don't have any neutrals. I have a bit of buff titanium and Naples yellow at the end, but that's as far as it gets here. So all colors, colors, colors. And this has been now a few years ago. So that was my kind of Daniel Smith, and I very quickly realized that the colors that Daniel Smith has, no one else has, like Green Apatite Genuine, Cascade Green. There's so many colors that are just unique. They granulate beautifully, they separate beautifully. This is even before us talking about, you know, things like Autumn Mystery, which is a beautiful, like a shiny color. It's got a bit of a gloss to it, and many, many others. So that's a little palette I really treasure, because it's where all of my Daniel Smith journey started. So let me now talk to you about these little palettes, which were the palettes after that I put together. So here's a mix of Schminke, I believe. Is it? Daniel Smith. Yeah, so I've got one Schminke and then the rest is Daniel Smith. And here I again went for a color palette that spoke to me at that time. So it's a little bit more limiting. Got loads of reds and pinks here, and a couple of really sort of unusual colors like the iridescent scarab red, Mayan blue genuine, ultramarine turquoise is really beautiful. So a little composition here of colors. And then the one after I created was this palette here, and I linked all of them in the information down below for you anyway. So here you can see I went into a different color group here. Let me just compare it to the previous one. So they're somehow similar-ish, but different enough. So you can see here I'm including a little bit more of the blue and purple, and more kind of the neutrals as well, so more kind of earthier tones. So that was it. At that point I was not feeling feeling adventurous enough to do anything more than this. So to me that was good enough. And I still like to revisit those palettes, which in whichever mood I am. And then I created another palette which has lasted for years and years. And this is the one, this one here, which I put stickers on. It's a very cheapy palette. You can get them on Amazon. And it's got, how many colors does it have? It's got 20 colors. Yes, it's got 20 colors in there, and it's got enough mixing space, so those were the colors I created. Again, nothing too special. I'd say the only colors that might be a little bit sort of less traditional are kind of these two, and maybe here couple. I included the Mars Black because I started dipping my toes into Mars Black as well. I realized that, I think around this time, it was that I realized how much I love granulating colors. Actually, let me just show you something. There's a series of videos that I did where I was watching different Schminke colors and kind of mixing them. So have a look there. But this is the one with the Mars Black, and you can see I've only used 6 colors and all of them sort of are blues and one green. But this is when I thought this is quite special, and it was quite a few years ago when I first got introduced to a Mars Black and thought I've never seen a color like this. So that was the Schmincke's one. And the beauty of it is, of course, you can mix it with any colors, which again, something I've learned later on, how you make dust colors. Like, you know, the very, I guess the classic dusk yellow and the dusk pink and things like that, by Rembrandt. Okay, so that's all of that. As my journey was developing, I then decided to create my latest one, and I think this is where it really shows you where I am today in terms of colors. It's so unique. I mean, you couldn't just take this color palette to create anything you wanted. I know it's very specific. It's lacking a lot of the colors that you would see in a traditional color palette. But like I said, if I ever need those traditional colors, I have them in my other set. So these are specialty palettes that I now create. So this is the latest one, and I called it my autumn palette. And there are this 2-part video where I explain and show and swatch every single color, so you can look at those. If I can link them, I'll link them up here, otherwise I'll put links down below. Okay, so yeah, you can see that what I have here is a number of things. I've got some shimmers, I've got loads of granulation here, predominantly I think on the whole there is more of the granulating colors than anything else. I've got some interesting earthy tones as well, which I recently discovered. All of these colors are, or most of them are recently discovered, or for sure this year. So yeah, I love this palette, and I love kind of creating different color palettes with it. So that is basically my journey. Thing that I want to mention before I go, or 2 things I would recommend, is a color wheel. So they come as a bigger size. Let me just grab one. So I've got this huge one which I managed to lose. I don't know how, but it does happen once in a while. So if you like larger things to hold and see and read, there's a larger one, and then there is a mini one, which I prefer because it takes up less space on the desk again, and I can even tuck it into a sketchbook if I wanted to. So it's exactly the same, gives you exactly the same information, just in a smaller scale. And I think it's very good to get one of those and just study them a little bit and get your head around it, because it's got all the information you need to know. It's got the value information here, which is from the darkest to the lightest. It's got all of the kind of primary, secondary, tertiary colors. Here it explains what it means. And it's got the tones and what's it called? Let me see. So it's got a shade, tone, and tint. So if you take the original color and then you add white, this is the color you get, then you add a bit of a, yes, so the tone means you add gray and the shade means you add black. So you can see, for instance, if you wanted to create that Mars black mix, with any of those colors, you could quickly see what sort of color range you would get to. So that's quite useful. And then it also explains to you what monochromatic, analogous, and complementary colors are. So, and the other obviously very important part of it is the contrast and complementary colors, in the sense that you need to know what colors you can mix together and which colors will neutralize, so create matte basically, so colors that will not look that great together, like mixed, but they would look really well together, one next to each other, so you know, they would pop together. Okay, so that's that. The other thing I would really recommend is this little book here. It's called The Little Book of Color, How to Use the Psychology of Color to Transform Your Life, and it's by Karen Haller. It's a very light read. It doesn't have too much text in it, but it's got loads of kind of inspiring little pictures, and it obviously talks about color and how it affects our, you know, mood and things like that. And you can also sometimes understand why you feel a certain way about a certain color. So that's all very, very interesting, and I highly recommend this book. It's a great little read for like Christmas time if you have extra time on your hands. Okay, so just to finish the video, I will show you again. I have mentioned these number of times, but if you're new, keeping a little palette, or not palette, a sketchbook rather, is very, very useful, because what you can do is you can swatch things out. If you buy them, like if you buy new supplies, you can just swatch them out. You can experiment. You can start learning about color palettes and colors that you are attracted to, and maybe experiment and see what is it that you like, you know, in terms of color. Like here you can see the pop. There is a bit of that dark kind of, so this is the Russet Neo Color 1. And then this one is the Neo Color 1 in turquoise blue. So they're popping and they work really lovely with this kind of yellow ochre color here. So it's very useful to create these sort of playful ways of experimenting with color and playing with color. And I've got another one here as well. Again, I'm constantly revising new color palettes. Sometimes I'm stuck onto one thing, so I'll show you a palette that I was really stuck on for quite a while, trying to find it. Oh, it's right here. So this is the palette I was really into during the autumn, and was repeating it a number of times in different artwork. And I mean, there are still colors here that you can see resemble, so definitely this pinky kind of color, and that is from here, and even a bit of that. But I am taking it further now and sort of adding more colors, taking some colors off, creating color palettes. So for instance, let me find what I'm talking about. So selecting smaller things. There's also a course that either is already available or will be soon. That is the newest color palette course, and I will be going through with you and teaching you how to create minimal contemporary color palettes that are very balanced. I'll show you just one as an example. Don't want to give away too much, but here is my happy color palette at the moment. So yeah, I'll show you basically how to select your favorite colors, how to then minimize them, what works well, and what formula kind of I developed over the time of playing with all these beautiful watercolors and art supplies. So that's basically it. I hope this was helpful for you, and you found it somewhat useful. Let me know in the comments below, and yeah, I will see you soon. Thanks for watching.